Marta Pen Freitas. I probably got that wrong. Welcome to the Running Effect podcast. How are you doing this morning?
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm really excited. You did pretty well. You sound kind of Portuguese. I feel like,
There we
yeah,
go.
crushed it.
For those joining us now, I went through a Portuguese class 5 minutes for the past 5 minutes trying to learn how to pronounce it. I do have to ask you, Marta, like how many commentators get the name wrong, specifically in the States?
I feel like when we were doing our Portuguese class, I told you like two versions of my name. One is like how you say it in Portuguese, and the other one is like the closest American Portuguese way, but in American. It's not even English, it's American. So quite a bit.
What teammate on the beast butchers it the worst?
It's actually interesting because I have like so I have actually six names. Like I'm Portuguese. I'm full on Portuguese. I have like way too many names, and they always do this kind of competition to know who actually knows all my full six names. I think honestly, it's weird when they try too hard to say with a Portuguese accent now because I feel like it just doesn't sound natural to me. So, but I don't know. I feel like honestly, Ali crushed it. So I think she knows all of my names and she says it really well. But when she says it with a Portuguese tone, it kind of feels odd.
Explain the six name thing. How do you have six names?
Okay, so in Portugal, so let's see. Okay, so Marta, Filipa, Pen, Oliveira, Freitas, Paris. So in Portugal, you get so Marta Filipa is my like first name and like second name, and then Pen is my mom's dad's name. And then Oliveira is my grandma from my dad's side. Freitas is my dad's last name, so my grandpa from my dad's side. And then Pyrus is my husband's name. So yeah, when we got married, we decided that he will get Pen Freitas and I will get Pyrus. But I should have taken some names off because I can tell how much trouble I run into it every time I go through security at the airport because they get so confused. Like it's so many names. They don't understand if the ticket matches like my ID. So it's a whole thing. So yeah, I will definitely not recommend.
What was it like growing up in Portugal? Take me through those years.
That was honestly, I was very fortunate. I mean, I was very, very fortunate because I'm an accident. My mom had me when she was 40. She already had two kids, and she actually went to the doctor thinking that she had early menopause. And long story short, she didn't. She was very pregnant. So, wasn't something that they were like really looking for, but yeah, I was always very loved growing up. I felt like I had like three moms because my sisters are 11 and 14 years older than me. So yeah, house full of girls, small house. There was just always a lot of love and a lot of food. Something that I always love about my parents is we lived in a really small apartment, but they always hosted like parties and we always had people coming over and there was always a lot of food and that was something that I just like now that I'm not there, I just like I really appreciate that I grew up that way. And I was very active, so I always like needed my mom used to say that I was always sweaty as a baby because I could not stop running. I was just running everywhere. Which is not a great thing. It's like why I'm always sweaty, mom. That doesn't seem like a compliment, but she said that I was just super active and I was always like running and yeah, so it was fun and yeah, I kind of started like nobody from my family does any sports, so I was the first one to, and yeah, but now they're like big fans of the sport and it's interesting. Sometimes we think like our parents are gonna like I don't know, like we always have this idea that your parents are gonna teach you a lot of things, but like kids can teach so much to their parents, and I we have that a little bit of that in my household growing up.
I love that. Thank you for sharing all of that. I'm excited to bridge the gap between that story and where you're at in present day being a two-time Olympian. I am curious, like bridging that gap and starting to fill out some more of the story. When did you first formally hear about track and then like enter into it? And what's the culture like in Portugal in terms of like how they view track? In the US, it's like I know of states where you start in kindergarten. It's like it's part of the sports are just a big culture. What's that like in Portugal?
Not a big culture, even though track and field is like one of the most successful sports in Portugal. I don't think there is like we don't have a lot of like there's not a structure from like when you're growing up. Like your academics is not correlated, or like there's not a structure with your academics and sports. So that makes like most of the people just being very focused in school. Growing up, my parents always prioritized school, and like my sisters like never really did sports. They were just always really focused on like school because I don't know. I always feel like at home doing sports, like I was in PT school before I moved here, was like all my teachers looked at me like I wasn't focused enough. It's like you should be just focused on PT school. You shouldn't be doing other things. Like they look at you as it's a little lesser, I would say that. And here it was the opposite experience. Like I had teachers, like I missed some classes because I went to SECs or some random meet, and the teachers would like personally give me the notes or like ask me in a Sunday if I need any help because they didn't want me to have any disadvantage. Like or like they celebrate like victories in classrooms, which was something that I was definitely not used to it at all. So track started, and I think that's super special about passionate people. So track for me started because there was this professor in my school that was a former track and field athlete that was incredibly passionate about track and field. So he took time of his own like own time because there's no track program right or anything like that, and he created a track program. Like not every school in Portugal has it, right? So I remember he had his baby, like he would bring the baby to practice, and it was just fun. Like he was super charismatic. He would be like walking like around the school, and he would look at you. He was like, "Hey kids, show up at practice. I'm going to change your life." He was super intimidating too, so you kind of feel like you had to go. So we had recess, and we had recess was 30 minutes. So we got start putting practice at during recess, so he could recruit kids. So like in the beginning, I started joining practice, just going over hurdles, doing the high jump. He would put like different stations. Oh, there was no track. This was just basically concrete. Like he did have the equipment. So we did all of those things, and so I started, and then we also played quite a bit of games growing up. So and then like they had like a lot of like competitions, like, and track for me was always like a team sport because there was districts, regions, nationals, and internationals, and I was like 11, right? So that was like, well, that's kind of cool. So the only way you make it is with points. So it does you never get individual medals, but you score as a team, and then you can move to like the different races. So yeah, we he had like he created this really strong team, and we had like yeah at a point he had about like 100 kids just show up at practice. We
Wow.
start having practice after school. After that, start having practice at Saturdays, at Sundays, pretty much everything because he was just passionate and he just like really wanted. And he creates something super special, and I was really fortunate to like be a part of that. But I wasn't like I always was doing like middle distance, but I did everything else. I did hurdles, I did sprints, I did high jump, I did all the other sports too, and it was just like a really fun way to grow up. Like grow up when I moved to the States, my college coach asked me how many miles I was doing, and I was like, I play basketball 45 minutes. That's what we do. And he was like, "Oh shit." Okay, so this is what we're dealing with. I had like no Garmin, no nothing like when I moved here. And by the time I moved here, I already had like pretty good times. Like I was like for a college girl good enough, like 203 and 420 on the 15. But very undertrained. Just pretty much, but very athletic because with all the little things we were doing growing up. But yeah, it was just fun. Like growing up with like a bunch of people like doing this like fun thing, and yeah, it was just a lot of play.
Do you know where that gentleman is today that started all that and coached you? I love those stories. Does he know about your present day success?
Yeah, so this was like this school is a public school, and it has like a lot of different like backgrounds. So like he has two kids that he introduced to track and field that ended up being Olympian. So me and my
Really?
friend Tiago, yeah, we only started doing track and field because like we had no idea what this was because of him. And in 2021, we had this super sweet moment, and both of us made our Olympic team together, and that was like super special. But that's just cool thing about track and field. I feel like me and Tiago definitely like, okay, we represent track in the highest level, but he had such a big impact on all the other kids. And like, it was like he taught them how to be disciplined, how to be focused. And, like sometimes like it's just so powerful when you have like somebody so passionate. Right now, he has a lot of resources. In the meantime, they build a track in that school, and he actually gets to be a full-time track coach, which is super special. And he goes to school and trying to create these little programs. But it doesn't have like any like it's also impossible to have the energy that he had with like dealing with 100 kids, hosting 3 practices a day. I don't know how he did it, honestly. Like I remember, even when you went on vacation, he would bring some of us with him to make sure we keep having practice. So he was like, it was insane. But yeah, it was super super cool way to grow up into the sport.
A common theme in a lot of my conversations with athletes on the podcast who have gone on to do extraordinary things is having a coach back in the day who believed in them before they believed in themselves and saw something in them, whether they were super fast at first or super slow at first, and just thought, if you stick with this, I'll stick with you, and you can go places. How much does it mean to you to look back on that individual and his belief in you before you believed in yourself that you could do the things that you've gone on to do in the sport of track and field?
It was really really special. I think also with him, it's so weird for me. Track started as a team sport, and track is pretty much individual sport, right? But what he created there with a group of people was just really special. Like we made like some of my best friends are from that group, and like they didn't pursue track after high school, but it's just such a special bond for sure. Like I think having somebody believing in you, I think it's definitely like super powerful, but having like a whole crew believing in you, I think that makes a whole like a difference. And I was like very fortunate to just have like a whole squad on my back. And it's funny because I've been always the shortest everywhere I've been. But I usually say that like running, even when I wasn't doing track and field, it felt like it was my superpower. And then I found my squad and they were so supportive, and it was just like a really fun way to like grow up and start like taking track more seriously too.
So you grew up in Portugal, you ran in Portugal, you end up coming to the States for college, you go to Mississippi State College. Take me through the transition from growing up in Portugal to not just America, but the Deep South and the SEC, which is one of the most accomplished conferences.
Okay, so to start off, like I never like growing up, I never thought I would be a professional athlete. It was completely, and if you ask me when I was 18 if I thought I would come, I would like I had no plans to come to the States. So like growing up, how my life was like shaped was not how it ended up going. Pretty much, I in 2014, I something happened in my personal life, and it really changed my focus. Instead of thinking I want to go to the Olympic Games, I started thinking I want to go to the next Olympic Games. And I had scholarship offers from like when I first got to college, but I was super into PT school, and I just like back then it just felt like, oh, it just seems like I never really wanted this bad. I never left my country. I never left my city, my hometown. I don't know. Like it's also interesting because back then like social media wasn't what it is right now. So like it looked very like I just didn't know anything. Like it my parents thought when I had my first scholarship offers that was a scam. They're like, they're scamming you. You're gonna go there. Like I'm never gonna see you again. That's a scam. Don't answer to that person ever again. So my boyfriend back then, which is my husband now, he was like, no, no, this is legit. Like there is this thing in America they actually care about sports, and there's this whole system that you could go to college and you could do sports at the same time. Isn't that crazy? And my parents were like, ah, no, scam. Well, in 2014, I reevaluated my situation. I was also about to start the thick of clinics in PT school, and I felt very stressed about feeling very mediocre at everything. Like not being full on in PT school, not be full on track. I didn't want to quit school just to do track. I was good, but like nothing insane. So ended up reaching back to some of the scholarship offers I had. That's an interesting thing to say because I knew nothing about America. So now when you talk about the Deep South, I never been here. Like I knew nothing. Like I needed like a crash course in America. So yeah, I basically chose based on coaching. So my husband, now boyfriend back then, helped me a lot. My English was also terrible. So he helped me a lot to like have this conversation with coaches. And I actually loved one coach that was from a D2 school, but I had no idea there was divisions or anything like that. So yeah, and pretty much chose my coach Houston Franks, which was one of the best choices I ever made. He was incredible, and I had such a good time in Mississippi State. But yeah, the transition was definitely different. Moving from a big city, Lisbon, and just going to Mississippi, that was different. I struggle with other things, like in Portugal, when we meet people, we kiss people on the cheek. I'm like super extrovert, so when I got there, I started kissing everybody, and we would end up in this very uncomfortable hug, and I'm like, wow. So there was a lot of Americanness that I didn't know, and I just brought all my Portugueseness here. So yeah, it took a few months till I get the hang of it, and then I stopped kissing people eventually, and things got better. But yeah, big transition. I do feel like it was great though because I was really able to focus on what I had to focus. I really came here for track purposes. Like I wanted to pursue school, but I just was really focused on training. So I didn't came here to party or anything like that. I've done all of those things. I had already my degree at home. Like I was already almost a PT. I needed to do the clinic. So for me, it was just literally important to be in a place that it was calm and I would be focused. And I just was so lucky. Houston was just an incredible mentor. He treated me the same when I first got there, and when I left, I was Olympian and national champion. And yeah, I always felt like I had the exact same treatment. And so I just felt like I have nothing but great things to talk about my college experience.
Take me to that day in 2016 in Eugene, Oregon, that NCAA championship, your first. What did that day and that race feel like and mean to you?
Whew. So well, I got to the States in 2015 and I fell on the final. In 2015. And my whole thing to come to the States was making the Olympic team, right? Which is my coach probably thought I was crazy because the first meeting we had, I had no idea about NCAA's or anything like that. I just like I want to make the Olympic team, and he's like, "Well, look, we have a few other things to accomplish in the meantime." So yeah, I got here. I was hurt. I had to get surgery, but somehow I managed to make the final in NCAA's in 2015. And then it was like devastating because like 109 meters after the race started, I got pushed. I felt really bad. I broke my wrist, and that felt like I'm super emotional, and that felt it was so hard because I felt like I climbed such a big mountain just to be in that place and I wasn't able to fully enjoy it. And then 2016 was the year of all or nothing, right? So there was all of these new things that I wanted to accomplish that I didn't know. So like SECs, NCAAs, and then big dream, like making my first Olympic team. So yeah, I feel like I had a lot of. It's so interesting when your body, all of your cells in your body are so focused in this one thing. And I was really able to experience that in 2016. Like I felt a big timeline. I felt I was really far from achieving my goal. And then things start happening. Yeah, so that final was definitely very emotional. Like I led pretty much the whole season in NCAA's, like time wise. And then I just ran from the front. And the last 10 meters, I started celebrating a little bit too early. And then I had to wait a solid 10 seconds to realize if I accomplished something that I run really bad or if I was just like really freaking dumb, which I was anyway. But still, I think there's this thing that people think you learn with bad things, but you can learn with good things too. So I guess like I learned from that. Just run through the line all the time. No celebrations 2 meters or 10 meters before.
You mentioned to me 2016 was the year of going all in. You win the NCAA title, and then you ultimately do qualify for your first Olympic team for the Rio Olympics, if I'm not mistaken, was 2016. It's crazy. That was
Yeah.
8 years ago. It's crazy
Yeah.
how time flies by. 2016 feels like yesterday, but also maybe it does feel like 8 years ago. I don't know. Anyways,
It's
what
wild.
yeah, I know. What did that accomplishment feel like to you, specifically in hindsight and in reflection of that little young Marta who was like, yeah, I'm never going to be a pro at any sport. That's not my calling.
It was really special. I think like it's just it's so cool when like I set this goal, and I think for me it was kind of like the Cinderella story that oh, she's in this place and then she makes this big move and things kind of go in her way and then don't go in her way, and then it seems like hard but then she makes it. So like I felt like I really had this like really cool experience of like there was a little bit moments of doubt, but then I ended up making my dream come true. And it seemed like a really long shot from like 2015, January 2015, when I decided to move to like June 2016, like a year and a half later, with like two surgeries in the meantime. Um, so yeah, it was just like super, super special. And I'm also super thankful with like all the people that I had around me, because it's really interesting with success and goals. Like you make those goals come true, and then like you very suddenly you forget about them. But it's so cool when you have like a team and people around you. Like there is like something extra in there, and I felt like the pursuit for that goal was more than just achieving the goal. With like all the connections and all the little things I've done to be able to like put myself in that position. So yeah, it was really, really special, but also short memory, because 2016, I felt I was so heartbroken after the Olympic Games. I really wanted to make a final, like super, super unrealistic, but it was just, I don't know, it was just so crazy. Like my whole thing was making the games, and then when I got there, I felt like devastated, which is crazy. And if I could go back, I would be like, we're not going to do that. Like, I think a lot of the times we think everything about black and white, but we have to remember this is our story, this is our own career, and it's our job to create this structure to be proud and celebrate our own journey. Yeah, comparison is a thief of joy, and everybody knows that. And I think the competitive world really brings, and that's something that I've been realizing too. Like, you need to have some sort of a crazy obsession and some mental health, like blindness, to be able to do what you got to do to be at the high level. But you also need to have a time in your like season, in I don't know, in your life, to like figure that out. Because yeah, after 2016 I started realizing that just like what I also thought it was just a great thing that I had, like my blindness and my focus, it was also something that I was like blindsiding some of my insecurities, and also like definitely not treating my mental health the way it should be treated. Also back then, it's so weird, just 8 years ago, mental health was something that it wasn't being like, it wasn't like a topic like it is right now. And I feel like I'm really glad that I'm able to still be in the sport in the period of time that this is a conversation that people are having.
Yeah, going into that more, I think you're one of the athletes kind of leading the charge to talk about mental health more, your own personal struggles with it, and how you've overcome a lot of struggles in the past with it. Can you take me through why that is so important to you and why we should start to raise more awareness specifically in athletics about talking about it?
I think like kind of what I was saying, like every professional athlete to be in this game, you need to have some sort of like you have to have like your blinds very like narrow, and I do feel like we ended up missing some other things, and sooner or later that is going to catch up to us. The search for success and like the walk to success is brutal, and we are willing to pay and do whatever it takes to be able to get there. But then we always forget that behind the athlete there is a human, there is like other there is a life after that. And I do think I'm so glad this is a conversation that people are having more and more. But I think in general, we fluctuate a lot with good situations and bad situations, and we often don't spend a lot of time working on the structure. I feel like, when things are going great, we feel great, and when things are not going great, we either repress them or we fall apart. And it's something super important to be able to work in this like good situations come and go, but I am who I am. I'm not who what I do, and I am very safe, and I'm in a good place about who I am. I think like having that like work, and like I know like there's so many modalities that you can work on your structure, like meditation, like other therapy, breath work. There's so many things that we could work on, but I feel like sometimes by the time we start working on, we repressed already enough insecurities. We already punched ourselves so much, or sometimes our ego just can't even fit into our little body. So, and that's a lot of work. So it's like kind of decluttering. Every season it's important that we just like throw some things away, and it's also important that we regularly do check-ins and we figure it out what's up. And we always evolving and updating our software. I like to say that, and it's important to embrace something new. It's also very important to drop weight out, and that's the only way how we're gonna like move forward. So yeah, I'm really passionate about it. I've been doing a lot of work to be able not just to accomplish the dreams that I feel like and the times that I feel like I can accomplish, but to be able to fully enjoy this process. Sports is brutal. I like to say that you don't deserve shit. You need to earn it. And it's brutal because I think a lot of the times we feel like, oh my God, if I worked so hard for it, like I really deserve it. It's so unfair that I got sick, that I had a bad situation coming. And that's just how it is, and there is a lot about reducing friction and being able about where you are and who you are, that I think it will definitely elevate the experience as a professional athlete. But that's a lot of work, and I think like the earlier you're able to like start having this like idea, the better it is. Like I said, I think when I was a kid, there was a lot of things that I valued, like, oh my God, how resilient I am, or like how fast I move into things. And then I also started realizing that's maybe probably not the healthiest thing to do. I never really had a time to like access and figure it out, like why I'm doing that. And then I have this like storage with a lot of things that I could have, solved back then. And now I have to like, oh, I have to unpack all this right now. Great.
Take me through joining Brooks, and more specifically the Brooks Beast team, and what that has meant to you as a professional runner, and growing and journeying with the company Brooks, who I feel like has just started to take off and do all these incredible things in the sport with their athletes. What's it been like to be a part of that family? And I feel like you've been, I wouldn't say an OG member, but you've been on the team for quite some time. So what's that journey and progression with the team been like?
It's been wonderful. Like it's so cool to like be around like-minded people, and I've been able to learn so much just by seeing them like doing things differently or being different than me. I think that's such a privilege. They are incredible athletes, but they're more than that. They're just like incredible people. So I'm like super proud of my team. It's such a joy doing practice every day. And then the brand, I think, wait, let me go back with the success they're having right now. Like Denny is really mindful about the way you build athletes, so it's not a surprise to me that people don't have this like crazy growth. We really work on sustainable growth, and I feel like this is a season that we actually blooming, but there was a lot of seeds that were put back there because we do things right. When you want things fast, yeah, sometimes you miss some steps, and then you ended up not in a great place. But I feel like Denny is just really good about like creating this sustainability in the team, and we are peaking at the right time, which is like Olympic year. For pretty much every single one of us. Brooks is just a really good company from like the experience I've been having, and I just feel like they really treat you like as with more than just being an athlete, and they have been like celebrate. Like I feel like we're really involved with the company too, especially in the last few years. So it's just like there is definitely a lot of goodness around the team. Like I feel like the brand supports the team so much in so many ways, and support us individuals too, which is really unique. Like we have this opportunity in the fall to do like internships at HQ, and this year I did like a really fun internship for like the community impact, and I was just like so excited and so amazed about this whole department that they have just dedicated to philanthropy and like activations mainly with kids. So I was really incentivized, and I'm creating a little project for the beasts next fall. Fingers crossed, it's not completely done yet, but I think it'll be really fun and wholesome too. So it's just like those little things there. I feel like are big things that Brooks does, and yeah. So it's been like just a really good journey. I feel like I've been able to grow as an athlete, but the company is also giving me tools to be able to grow in other directions as well.
You mentioned to me how Danny approaches the team, approaches training very much from a long-term sustainable outlook. And you kind of mentioned that patience aspect, and how, you can't expect to see results right away. And that made me think of a quote that I think I said on a podcast last year, but it's been quite some time since I've referenced it. And the quote I came across was, the quickest fix is the longest path. And in reflection of that quote, I think it's so true. I think the people that look for the quick fixes ultimately end up in last place. And it takes so much longer because quick fixes never work and it takes them forever to figure that out. Versus the person that's like, success and getting to these goals is going to take a couple years, but that's okay. I'm going to be patient and I'm gonna be really meticulous with how I approach each and every single day and be okay with it taking a long time. Can you speak to that patience aspect and why the quickest fix is the longest path?
I think like there is definitely progress, right? I feel everybody's been very successful, but are we really getting into this different like level? And I feel like the I like the seeds and the blooming metaphor. Like I think this is the season of the bloom. Like we're really gonna bloom this season. Yeah, it does take a lot of patience and trust too. But there's just like you can't like the tree, right? Like a tree doesn't grow from one day to another, right? Like you really need to be patient. And Danny is just really good about that. I feel like it's really easy to just like burn out in this world and just like really do like, and I think he's just really meticulous about how we like create this intensity days and how we works on like basic parts, components of our training that will help us to achieve this like important component. Like a lot of our teammates did half marathons during the fall, for example. Indoors we never take it extremely serious, but in the meantime, Josh won world championships and broke a world record. And I feel like everything was done very smoothly. It wasn't like he is hitting this crazy chat sessions every week because this is it. And no, I feel like it's all part of a big vision, and the season has like definitely he does a really good job about like timing things and being very intentional with everything. So yeah, it does take some patience and trust for sure. But also I think it's just really rewarding, and this is what it takes to do things right.
We talked about you making the Olympic Games in 2016. You also made the Olympics in Tokyo and I guess the 2020 Olympics, but happened in 2021. This year, you're chasing back to back to back your third Olympic team. We're talking in May here, so a few months removed. How are you feeling about your chances? How are things going? And what feels different about 2024 than 2021 and 2020, or excuse me, 2021 and 2016?
So unfortunately in May last year I had an injury and I did what you probably shouldn't do, which is like I kept running because I really want to run world championships. And then it took me 4 months off running to be able to completely be back at it. So I'm definitely dealing with training is like definitely not the smoothest it has been. Just because I'm like I have to have like a little bit of a missed period of time there. So it's really important just to be very present. Like with that being said, I missed a whole indoor season, and outdoors I didn't compete that much last year too because I was dealing with my injury. So I'm like, I'm just a little bit. I'm definitely. I have a tight window to qualify. It's still possible, and I still believe pretty much that I'll make my third Olympic team. But I really need to be very mindful and very intentional with like my steps moving forward. It is definitely hard. I feel like the sport already has enough pressure, but in Olympic year, I feel like it's just like the dream part really plays a role, and sometimes that's beautiful and awesome, especially when the process is smooth. But when it's not, sometimes it could also be something against us. So I'm very emotional sometimes, that takes a little bit of me. But like what you said, it does really take patience, and I'm like just fortunate. Like I have a really great coach. I know with what we got, he's gonna put me in the best position to make that happen. So I just really need to like do my job, take a deep breath, and really enjoy it. I think that's something that I wasn't able to do as well, and I'm more intentional right now. Like I really don't know if I'm going to make it or not. I really hope I will. At this point right now, I'm not qualified, so I have 2 months to get it done. But regardless of the result, I don't like you earn everything in track and field. You don't deserve anything, but I deserve to enjoy my process. Like there is things that you deserve, and that's also your choice. So I'm really trying to like enjoy this run as much as I can. And yeah, I still have like there is some things that I really want to do before I'm done with the sport. Like I really want to be a world finalist in break four, and I still believe that's in me. But yeah, I just need to like focus on the next best step from now till the end of June, which is when the qualification is over, and then I will let you know if I get in my third Olympic team or not. But fingers crossed.
Marta, I've loved my conversation with you thus far. I feel like you've shared so much wisdom. So I'm going to give you one more serious question before ending things. We are in May, as we've mentioned a few times. And in recollection, May is the time of the year where people graduate from high school, from college. They go into all sorts of new beginnings. What would be a final piece of advice you want to leave with our audience, or a portion of our audience who is entering new futures, maybe unknowns, risks? What would be some messages for the audience who's entering into this new period as they close one chapter and look to go into a new one, whether that's going to college, getting a job, running professionally? You never know who's listening.
So be very present where you are right now. I think like if you have 1 month left in college, enjoy it. Be where your feet are. I think often we think too much ahead or we get too stressed about what happened and we miss the only thing we can control, which is our present. So I would just say like be very focused on your present and like the future will happen if you are focused in where you are.
Marta, one final question for you. The question I ask every single guest on every single episode. If you had Gordon Ramsay coming over to your house for dinner, what would you choose to make for him?
Oh, I would make pastéis de nata, which is my favorite Portuguese pastry.
Ooh,
But
what
I
is
don't
it?
know.
What could you compare it to?
It's a custard tart,
Ooh, okay.
egg custard tart. It's very nice, subtle, great. I don't really make it that well. I feel like this is probably the dessert that I messed up the most, so it wouldn't be great for Gordon Ramsay. But yeah, I would go with that. It's my favorite dessert. So everything made
Hey,
with love is great.
yeah, no risk, no reward. You never know. You shoot for the stars, and if it turns out well, I'm sure he'll be happy. And he's mad all the time anyway. So if he's mad, nothing changes. Anyways, Marta,
That's
really
awesome.
appreciate our conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your story, but also being very intentional with sharing specific wisdom to a younger audience. I really appreciate it, and I'm rooting for you to make that third Olympic team in Paris.
Thank you so much.